What happens when humans step into a land that was never meant for them? At the edge of the Arctic, Greenland reveals itself as a world shaped by ice, wind, and light. Massive icebergs drift slowly across frozen seas. Deep fjords cut sharply into the land, and snow-covered mountains rise directly from the ocean. White dominates every frame. Ice stretches endlessly toward the horizon, reflecting cold gray skies, while relentless winds sweep across a land that feels almost empty. Here, nature is never still. Ice cracks. Glaciers move. The ocean carries colossal blocks of ice out to sea, forming a landscape in constant motion, even in the near absence of people. From above, Greenland feels almost unreal. A vast white ice sheet dominates the interior, while life clings to narrow coastal edges where mountains, ice, and sea collide. This is not a land designed to welcome humans. Yet within its harshness, Greenland reveals one of the purest and most untouched forms of beauty on Earth. In this episode, we travel through Greenland as a visual journey from the icy eastern shores down to the rare green south. Along the western coast where fjords open endlessly, and northward, where nature is stripped to its most minimal form. This is Greenland. After witnessing Greenland shaped by ice, wind, and the absence of humanity, a natural question emerges. Who first entered a land seemingly not meant for human life, and how did they survive? Human presence arrived early, but never remained continuous. Around 2,500 years before the Common Era, Paleo-Eskimo hunting communities moved into Greenland, carrying survival knowledge built on ice, sea, and seasonal movement. They did not build cities, they learned when to leave. After centuries, these early communities vanished, leaving Greenland empty once again. This land did not keep people through stability. It tested them through change. In the late 10th century CE, Greenland entered a different chapter. Around 985, Eric the Red led Viking settlers from Iceland to southern Greenland, establishing Norse communities along rare green fjords. For the first time, humans attempted permanence. Viking settlements endured for nearly 500 years, building farms, churches, and ties to medieval Europe. But as climate cooled during the Little Ice Age, this way of life collapsed. By the 15th century, the Norse had vanished. As the Vikings faded, another culture spread quietly. The Thule, direct ancestors of today's Inuit. From the 12th to 13th centuries, they adapted fully to the Arctic not by controlling Greenland, but by moving with its rhythm. The modern era truly began in 1721, when missionary Hans Egede arrived at what is now NUUK, drawing Greenland into the European world. Even then, the land never became easy to hold. And as Greenland's history took shape through cycles of arrival, adaptation, and retreat, another turning point came on June 5, 1953, when Greenland was formally incorporated into the Kingdom of Denmark as an equal part of the realm, ushering in a new chapter of governance, autonomy, and political relationships that continue to the present day. After millennia of arrival and retreat, Greenland entered a different phase, no longer defined by who could survive, but by who could decide. As human presence became more stable, history gave way to politics, and Greenland's story began to be shaped by systems of governance rather than patterns of migration. Greenland emerges as a land with significant self-rule, but not full independence. The island operates its own government and parliament, responsible for most domestic affairs, from education and healthcare to economic development. Greenland remains a self-governing territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. Foreign policy, defense, and strategic security remain under Copenhagen's authority, placing Greenland within a broader political framework, despite its autonomy. This structure gives Greenland its own voice while preventing complete separation from global decision-making. Any major shift in the island's international position requires coordination between NUUK and Denmark. Geography pushes Greenland beyond regional politics. Positioned between North America and Europe, overlooking the North Atlantic and the Arctic, the island holds a key role in defense, surveillance, and strategic movement across the Northern Hemisphere. As sea ice patterns shift and Arctic routes gain attention, Greenland's strategic value becomes increasingly visible. This is why major powers have shown more open interest in the island in recent years. Among them, the United States has been the most explicit. It views Greenland as a critical security anchor in Arctic and North Atlantic defense, as well as a key node for monitoring emerging shipping lanes and strategic airspace. Recent and controversial proposals from the United States, including ideas of deeper involvement in Greenland's future, have triggered strong responses from local authorities and Denmark. The shared position has been clear. Greenland is not an object to be bought or absorbed. For Greenland's people, the core issue is not alignment with any great power, but self-determination. Discussions about future independence may exist, but the right to choose that path must come from Greenland itself, not from external pressure. Greenlandic politics today is quiet rather than loud. It unfolds cautiously, weighing autonomy, security, and the responsibility of protecting a land increasingly watched by the world. Greenland is the largest island on Earth, a land where nature overwhelmingly outweighs human presence. Spanning 2,166,000 square kilometers, Greenland is larger than most European countries combined. Yet home to only 56,000 people, living mainly along narrow coastal edges. More than 80% of Greenland is covered by ice, forming a massive frozen interior that is almost inaccessible. This ice dictates where people can live, how they move, and the slow, deliberate rhythm that defines Arctic life. Greenland is not defined by what is present, but by what is absent. Space stretches until humans feel reduced, and nature moves according to rhythms that require no witness. Ice, rock, sea, and light do not exist to form scenery. They exist because this is the land's natural state. Every landscape, coastlines, fjords, plateaus, ice fields, is the result of patience extended over time. Greenland does not change by days, but by seasons. Not by seasons, but by cycles. Light can stretch endlessly, then disappear entirely. Movement is slow, but when it occurs, it reshapes everything. Traveling through Greenland is not about moving between destinations. It is about passing through states of nature. From sea ice to brief grasslands, open waters, and near-empty expanses. Each region does not contrast, but continues the last. Here, nature tells its story, not through events, but through repetition. What appears will disappear, then return in altered form. Life does not anchor itself. It adapts, moves, and withdraws when necessary. Greenland does not invite conquest or control. It opens as a space for observation, where humans are not the center of the landscape, but a minor presence within a far larger system. This is a journey through a land governed by its own logic, where beauty lies not in display, but in endurance, silence, and refusal to compromise. And from that wide perspective, the true journey begins not in the most populated place, but in Greenland's most untouched region. East Greenland is where nature remains largely untamed. There are no continuous roads, no long chains of cities, only sheer mountains, deep fjords, and silent ice drifting offshore. This region stretches along one of the Arctic's most severe coastlines, where mountain ranges rise directly from frozen seas, forming cliffs and glacial valleys on a scale that defies human intuition. East Greenland has the lowest population density on the island. Across a vast territory, only 3,500 people reside here, mostly clustered in small coastal communities, isolated by ice and weather. This isolation has preserved the landscape in an almost pristine state. Many fjords along the eastern coast reach depths of over 1,000 meters, turning dark waters into immense mirrors reflecting the Arctic sky. On Greenland's eastern edge, distance is no longer abstract. ITTOQQORTOORMIIT exists in near total isolation not by choice, but by geography. The town sits at the mouth of a vast fjord system, where sea ice can seal access to the ocean for most of the year. For months at a time, waterways close, and air travel becomes entirely weather-dependent. With a population of roughly 350 people, ITTOQQORTOORMIIT is among Greenland's most isolated communities. There are no roads connecting it to other towns, and all supplies arrive seasonally or not at all. Life here moves to the rhythm of ice. When the sea freezes, the town turns inward. When the ice retreats, the outside world briefly opens. Time is measured not by calendars, but by water and wind. ITTOQQORTOORMIIT was not built to expand, but to endure. Its brightly colored houses are not decorative. They resist the long monochrome of Arctic winter. For travelers, this is not an easy destination. nor an easy place to understand. Yet that difficulty makes ITTOQQORTOORMIIT a rare cross-section of Greenland, where humans do not conquer space, but learn to live within its absolute limits. In East Greenland, the animal that defines the rhythm of the sea is not a predator, but a seal. The ringed seal is one of the very few species capable of living its entire life beneath sea ice, where the ocean remains covered for most of the year. Their presence along the eastern coast is not accidental. East Greenland offers stable, thick, long-lasting sea ice ideal conditions for seals to maintain fixed territories rather than migrate long distances. Instead of following distance, they follow ice. Ringed seals hunt entirely beneath the ice. They feed on small fish, crustaceans, and plankton, exploiting cold water zones where prey concentrates just below the ice sheet. Every hunt occurs in a narrow, dark, frozen world, where patience matters more than speed. Survival here depends on memory. Ringed seals carve and maintain breathing holes through the ice, memorizing their exact locations even when snow fully conceals them. Each surfacing lasts only seconds, just long enough to breathe before diving again. Breeding takes place directly on the ice. Females dig small snow dens above breathing holes, creating shelters that protect pups from wind and danger. During the first weeks of life, pups rarely leave the den, growing in silence and darkness. When spring arrives and ice begins to fracture, seals do not disappear, they disperse. From the eastern coast, they follow drifting ice edges along the shoreline, expanding feeding grounds and initiating movement across Greenland's entire food chain. East Greenland is therefore not merely where seals live, but where the Arctic story begins, beneath the ice, in silence, shaped by memory, patience, and absolute adaptation. After leaving the empty fjords and near humanless landscapes, the journey gradually reaches rare points of light along the eastern coastline, where life persists, not through scale, but through endurance. Settlements in East Greenland did not emerge out of convenience, but necessity. They cling to the coastline, tucked between rock and sea ice, in the only places where humans can access the ocean and its resources. Across the vast expanse of East Greenland, there are only around 8 communities inhabited year-round. Each functions as a closed world where work, daily routines, and social life unfold within a confined and familiar space. There are no roads linking settlements. Movement between communities depends entirely on natural conditions. When ice allows, when winds calm, when daylight lasts long enough. Distance here is measured not by maps, but by patience. Population in each settlement typically ranges between 500 and 600 people, forming communities where every individual plays a visible role. Mutual dependence is not a social preference, but a requirement for survival. Life in East Greenland is governed more by light than by clocks. Winter brings near continuous darkness, compressing human life into interior spaces and close relationships. Summer, with its unending daylight, dissolves the familiar boundaries of time. The sea remains central to everyday life. Fishing and traditional hunting do not merely provide food, but shape daily schedules, work cycles, and the sense of stability within each community. When the sea changes, life changes with it. Leaving the cold, enclosed eastern coast behind, the landscape begins to shift quietly. Ice thins, rock becomes more visible, and for the first time on this journey, the ground does not merely exist. It begins to live. South Greenland is a visual paradox. In many imaginations, Greenland is nothing but ice and snow. Yet here, during the warmest months, grass emerges, hillsides turn green, and valleys open under the gentler southern light. This region lies south of the Arctic Circle, giving it a noticeably different seasonal rhythm. Summer brings temperatures warm enough for ice to retreat, soil to soften, and terrestrial life to briefly take precedence over Arctic extremes. Space in South Greenland feels more open and forgiving. Fjords no longer press tightly between sheer cliffs, but stretch through wide valleys where mountains soften and light moves slowly across the land. The landscape no longer overwhelms, it guides. These conditions make South Greenland one of the few areas on the island capable of sustaining small-scale agriculture. In summer, grass grows dense enough to support livestock, and valleys become centers of a way of life entirely distinct from the rest of Greenland. History mirrors this contrast. Norse Vikings arrived in South Greenland in 985 Common Era, choosing this region for settlement due to its relatively mild climate and rare agricultural potential within the Arctic world. Traces of the past dissolve into the present landscape. Green valleys, gentle coastlines, and extended daylight suggest that Greenland once was, and still can be, a land of growth, not solely of survival. On the warmest summer days, temperatures can rise above 10 degrees Celsius, allowing outdoor work, easier movement, and an experience of Greenland far removed from its frozen stereotype. The presence of green in South Greenland is never dominant. It appears just enough to counterbalance the ice, just enough to alter how the entire island is perceived. Green here does not promise permanence. It exists only to prove that conditions can shift. As the story moves away from sea ice and into South Greenland, life anchors itself to land for the first time. Caribou become the dominant large animals here, not through strength, but through patience. Caribou do not live in a constant state. They spend most of their lives waiting for a brief summer, when ice retreats and grasslands emerge. For only a few warm months, South Greenland becomes a rare source of sustenance. They feed on grass, moss, and lichen, low-growing plants that develop slowly but store high energy. Every movement is calculated to avoid wasting strength, because winter returns faster than any animal can prepare for. Caribou migrate seasonally, but not across vast distances as on other continents. In Greenland, they move vertically and geographically from warmer lowlands to cooler uplands, maintaining distance from advancing ice. Calving is precisely timed with summer. Newborn calves arrive when grasslands reach peak nutrition, allowing rapid growth before cold returns. Timing itself becomes the only form of protection. Female caribou do not build nests or shelters. Instead, they rely on open space where long sightlines allow early detection of danger. Calves learn to stand and move within hours of birth. As summer closes, caribou herds begin to disperse. They leave fading grasslands and retreat to areas with thinner snow, digging for lichen beneath. South Greenland grows quiet, signaling that the biological chain is about to shift back toward the sea. Caribou do not challenge Greenland. They adapt to it. Their seasonal existence proves that on this island, land-based life survives only by knowing when to withdraw. As the journey moves on from the south, the greenery gradually fades from view, but the impression remains. It expands the understanding of Greenland, not as a monochrome land, but as a complex system, where ice, earth, and life constantly negotiate their place. After centuries of arrival and retreat, Greenland gradually formed rare anchors, places where remaining became possible. As history slowed from constant movement into relative stability, NUUK emerged as a natural outcome of the western coast, where land, sea, and human presence finally reached a fragile balance. NUUK is not built on flat ground. It clings to rock slopes, opens toward cold water, and is enclosed by mountains, fjords, and sea. The city exists as a thin layer between immense natural forces, where space constantly reminds humans of their true scale. The bay on which NUUK sits cuts deep into the land, forming calmer waters than the open ocean. Surrounding fjords do not constrict, but spread outward, allowing light to move slowly across water and rock, creating a landscape that constantly shifts without ever feeling chaotic. Space in NUUK is strongly shaped by light. In summer, daylight stretches for most of the day, reflecting off water and rock, blurring the boundaries between land, sea, and sky. In winter, darkness compresses visual space, emphasizing the raw contours of stone and snow. Within this landscape, human presence reaches its highest concentration on the island. NUUK is home to 19,000 people, clustered along the coastline and habitable rock slopes. Yet this presence does not diminish nature. It sharpens the contrast between human scale and surrounding space. The city also sits at the heart of Greenland's natural network. From here, the western coastline fans outward, linking fjords, small islands, and deep waters. Approximately 40% of Greenland's economic activity is tied directly or indirectly to this area, largely due to maritime access and comparatively favorable terrain. Even as a center, NUUK does not disrupt the Arctic rhythm. Mountains still dominate the horizon, the sea still dictates movement, and light remains the strongest governing force. The city imposes no new order. It accepts the one already present. The landscape around NUUK never settles into a single frame. It shifts with every movement, every angle, and every change in light. Mountains, rock, and sea do not form a backdrop. They constantly restructure the surrounding space. Coastal rock slopes carve rough contours where land ends abruptly and the ocean begins. There are no soft boundaries here. Every transition is sharp, deliberate, and deeply rooted in Arctic geology. Leaving this area does not feel like departing a city, but like stepping away from a stretch of landscape where land, sea, and light briefly reached a rare equilibrium. From that equilibrium, the journey continues along the western coastline, where space begins to widen, fjords stretch farther, and Greenland gradually reveals a different rhythm of its own. As NUUK formed as a rare point of stability, the question shifted from whether humans could remain in Greenland to how they could sustain themselves. The economy here was never built for rapid expansion, but for endurance within constant limits. Greenland's economy operates on a very small scale. The entire island is home to approximately 56,000 people, placing all production, labor, and consumption within narrow bounds, tied closely to the natural environment. Fishing and seafood processing form the backbone of the economy. This sector accounts for over 90% of export value, with shrimp and fish serving as primary revenue sources linking Greenland to global markets through the sea. Beyond fisheries, other sectors grow slowly and selectively. Tourism is expanding, but constrained by high costs, limited infrastructure, and difficult access. Greenland does not pursue mass tourism, maintaining small scale to reduce environmental pressure. A significant portion of the economy comes from annual subsidies from Denmark, accounting for roughly 20% of gross domestic product, supporting public services and social stability within a fragile system. Greenland's economy does not follow a logic of constant growth. It exists as a balancing act between extraction and preservation, global connection and local limits, development aspirations, and the land's capacity to endure. In daily life, Greenland's economy is felt immediately. Work, income, and living costs are closely tied to weather, sea conditions, and external access, making stability inherently relative. Many coastal communities operate within a familiar cycle. Fishing seasons determine the pace of the year, while remaining months are spent repairing, preparing, and waiting. The economy follows seasons rather than calendars. High transportation costs and reliance on imports give every consumption choice greater weight. In Greenland, the economy does not encourage excess, it enforces consideration. These limits shape a system built not on speed or scale, but on persistence. Economic survival in Greenland is less about rapid growth and more about not breaking under constant change. As economic calculations fade into the background, Greenland allows nature to lead once more. The western coast unfolds not as an outcome or objective, but as a flow where sea, wind, and rock continue to move on their own terms, largely untouched by human influence. This is where ice, water, and life intersect most visibly. Fjords widen, allowing the ocean to penetrate deep into the land. The water here is no longer dark and still like the east, but reflective, carrying light, clouds, and drifting ice shaped by gentle currents. West Greenland's coastline stretches over 6,000 kilometers, forming a rare sequence of diverse landscapes. Wide fjords, open bays, scattered islands, and constantly shifting shorelines. Each segment carries its own rhythm, yet all are bound together by the sea. This rhythm makes the western coast Greenland's living axis. Approximately 70% of Greenland's population resides along this coastline, not to control nature, but to coexist with it, relying on the sea, moving with the seasons, and accepting constant change. The landscape along the western coast never settles into a single form. It shifts with every bay that opens, every chain of small islands that appears and disappears beyond the horizon. Everything seems to drift, even the coastline itself. What makes Greenland's western coast distinctive is not a single location, but a sense of constant movement. Space remains open, yet never empty. Life is not abundant, but it is always present precisely when and where it belongs. Along Greenland's western coast, human presence does not disrupt the landscape, it dissolves into it. Homes cling to the waterline, small harbors appear and vanish within deep fjords, and all signs of life face the sea. Here, land is not the center, the ocean defines the living space. The sea carries its own rhythm, both sustaining and restricting life. Calm days allow movement and connection between scattered coastal communities. But when wind shifts, water closes in, and familiar distances instantly feel remote. All plans remain flexible, because the western coast does not tolerate permanence. Weather, currents, and light determine when movement is possible, and when waiting becomes the only option. Light behaves differently here. It reflects off the water, travels deep into wide fjords, revealing layers of rock and slowly drifting ice. The space never fully collapses into darkness. It remains open. This constant openness makes West Greenland a transitional zone. Not overwhelmingly harsh, yet never easy. Space is wide enough for life to emerge, but always reminds that everything here is temporary. The western coast does not tell its story through dramatic moments. It speaks through repetition, fjords opening and closing, small islands passing through view, and the sense that the landscape never pauses to be observed. It simply keeps moving. Here, survival does not come from standing firm. It comes from drifting in rhythm with Greenland itself. As the western coastline continues northward, the landscape shifts in a subtler way. Space is no longer defined by a continuous shoreline, but by a vast bay where land recedes, giving way to water, light, and movement. DISKO Bay feels open and expansive. Its waters stretch wide, largely unobstructed, allowing northern light to spread and reflect more freely. Sky, sea, and horizon begin to blend, forming a rare sense of openness along the Greenland journey. It is one of Greenland's largest bays, covering approximate 57,000 square kilometers. This scale slows everything down, creating space to breathe from water currents and shifting light to the rhythms of life along its shores. Ice remains present, but no longer dominates. Instead of overtaking the entire scene, it appears as slow-moving accents, reminders that DISKO Bay still belongs to the frozen world, without being confined by it. DISKO Bay does not impress through density of objects, but through extended emptiness. Here, land retreats from the center of experience, giving space to water, air, and an expanding horizon. Open space forces movement to slow. Without enclosing cliffs or nearby anchors, the eye drifts farther, longer, and with less attachment to specific details. Vision becomes wide, yet unburdened. This absence reshapes the sense of scale. Everything present in DISKO Bay, no matter how small, exists within a much larger context. Not because it is massive, but because so much space surrounds it. Time behaves differently here. With space uninterrupted by terrain or obstacles, moments flow evenly and stretch longer. Minutes are not fragmented, but connected into a slow, continuous current. Entering DISKO Bay, the ocean no longer spreads endlessly. Space is compressed by deep waters, slow currents, and drifting melt ice. Energy does not disperse. Here it gathers, briefly. Whales arrive from distant seas, traveling thousands of kilometers to reach this bay at a precise moment each year, when it becomes Greenland's most concentrated feeding ground. DISKO Bay functions as a biological funnel. Ocean currents, bay geometry, and melting ice combine to compress fish into a confined space, making it one of the few Arctic waters where energy accumulates rather than disperses. Whales exploit this moment through precise feeding strategies. They dive deep, maneuver through dense fish schools, and surface repeatedly. Each movement, a calculation of energy, how much is spent, how much is gained. Beneath the surface, DISKO Bay is far from silent. Whale vocalizations travel through the cold, dark water, allowing them to orient themselves, maintain spacing, and keep feeding formations intact. This hidden world exists alongside the surface humans observe. Abundance in DISKO Bay peaks quickly and retreats just as fast. As open water season begins to close, fish disperse into colder currents and whales depart almost simultaneously, carrying away the energy they have stored. Within weeks, a bay, once dense with life, grows sparse. Ice returns, currents shift, and the food chain loses its most concentrated gathering point. DISKO Bay is therefore not a place of stability, but of brief culmination. From here onward, Greenland's food chain begins to stretch, forcing life to travel farther to persist. As whales disappear northward, the narrative follows, leaving the last zone of abundance behind and entering regions where life no longer gathers, but survives in fragments. After the wide breadth and softened rhythm of DISKO Bay, space suddenly tightens. The horizon draws closer, water compresses, and movement funnels toward a single axis. Here, ice is no longer background. It becomes structure. The ILULISSAT ice fjord is a 40-kilometer ice corridor, where colossal blocks flow steadily toward the sea from one of the Arctic's most active glaciers. Space here does not open, it bears weight. Vertical ice walls stack like natural architecture, forming narrow passages and fractured plains. Light is reflected, bent, and thrown back, making even the smallest change unmistakable. The fjord is fed by ICEFJORD glacier, which releases roughly 35 cubic kilometers of ice into the ocean each year. The figure is not spectacle. It explains why everything here remains in motion. In ILULISSAT, time does not flow evenly. There are extended moments of near silence, broken only by wind and water. Then, without warning, ice fractures sound, travels, and space is instantly reconfigured. Ice here is not smooth. It carries cuts, layers, and collision marks, the result of thousands of years of compression, sliding, and fracture. Each block is a geological record, legible through light and shadow. Density and pressure define this fjord. Space does not permit quick passage. Every advance is forced to slow, as if the landscape itself sets the tempo. ILULISSAT Icefjord was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2004, not for beauty alone, but for revealing how ice operates, renews itself, and reshapes the Arctic coast. Northern light here sculpts, It separates mass, sharpens edges, and stretches shadows, turning ice into near abstract forms. Color shifts with the hour, but the sense of weight remains. For those who pass through, ILULISSAT does not deliver instant awe. Its impact accumulates slowly. An understanding forms that this landscape is never still and never has been. Every moment at ILULISSAT is temporary. Ice masses that appear still are merely paused states before structural change. Space here is not built to endure, but to transform continuously. This impermanence shifts the experience from spectacle to sensation. No major event is required, only enough time to realize that this landscape never repeats itself. Leaving the fjord does not feel like having witnessed a scene, but like having been inside a working system. Ice does not sleep. It continues to move, compress, and fracture even when unseen. As northern Greenland fades behind, the journey enters a different state of space, where sparseness is no longer a sensation, but a default condition. This is the high Arctic, a realm where the idea of habitability begins to dissolve. The high Arctic is a region where the idea of seasons nearly collapses. Ice dominates both sea and land for most of the year, shifting life away from spring, summer, autumn, and winter toward a single question of whether movement is possible at all. In many areas, ice and snow can persist for 9 months each year, compressing all natural activity into a brief window when light and temperature temporarily allow the landscape to open. High Arctic terrain is defined by extreme minimalism. Exposed plateaus, sharp coastlines, and vast referenceless space erode any clear sense of distance or time. Light behaves differently here. During summer, the sun can remain above the horizon for 24 continuous hours, stretching daylight until time itself feels indistinct. The high Arctic does not invite entry. It exists as both a physical and psychological boundary, where any presence must submit to pre-existing extremes rather than reshape them. As the journey enters the high Arctic, life no longer gathers in places. There are no rich bays, no summers long enough to sustain land. Only drifting ice, strong winds, and vast empty space remain. This is where polar bears appear most consistently. Polar bears are not tied to land. They live with sea ice, moving along its edges as part of the frozen ocean. When ice drifts, bears drift with it. When ice fractures, territories shift. Their maps have no borders, only ice and water. Their hunting strategy relies on absolute patience. Bears observe seals from a distance, memorizing breathing holes and familiar surfacing points. Rather than chasing, they remain still for hours, sometimes days, waiting for a single opportunity in a world where chances are rare. In the high Arctic, every successful hunt provides more than food. It buys time. Bears store energy to endure long periods without prey, as ice changes faster than most species can adapt. Bears do not succeed every season. When ice retreats, they are forced to travel hundreds of kilometers or endure extended fasting. Their survival depends less on strength than on endurance through scarcity. Polar bear cubs are born in snow dens, carved into ice or coastal banks. For weeks, they remain hidden from the outside world. Every movement, Every breath of the cubs depends entirely on energy their mother stored long before birth. The high Arctic is not a realm of dominance for polar bears. It is a place of limits. Where ice persists, bears endure. Where ice vanishes, they vanish with it. Polar bears thus become Greenland's most visible measure. Their presence reflects the condition of the ice and the future of the entire Arctic ecosystem. Leaving the far north and moving into Greenland's ice sheet interior, the landscape no longer expands outward. It collapses into absoluteness. Every direction looks the same. Every horizon dissolves into a pale band of light. Space neither invites nor repels. It simply exists. Here, ice is no longer an object to observe, but an enveloping environment. Ground and sky share the same palette, separated only by brightness. The familiar distinction between above and below begins to lose meaning. The ice surface stretches endlessly, sculpted by wind into hard, sharp ripples. There are no trees, no exposed rock, no biological traces. Everything is flattened into the rhythm of wind and cold. Greenland's ice sheet interior is not only an experiential void, but a massive physical entity. The ice sheet covers approximately 1,710,000 square kilometers, accounting for nearly 80% of Greenland's landmass, turning most of the country into a continuous, uninterrupted ice plateau. Ice thickness at the interior averages around 2,000 meters, with the deepest sections exceeding 3,000 meters. This mass did not form over centuries, but through accumulation spanning more than 100,000 years, layer upon layer of snow compressed in near total silence. Climatically, the ice sheet interior is among the driest regions in the Arctic. Annual precipitation averages only about 200 millimeters, classifying the area as a polar desert. This dryness hardens the ice, leaving it brittle and largely free of soft surface snow. The interior rises to an average elevation of roughly 3,000 meters above sea level. At this height, thin, cold air limits heat retention and intensifies isolation. The ocean, a moderating force along the coasts, exerts no influence here. The ice sheet interior has recorded some of the lowest temperatures ever measured in the Northern Hemisphere, reaching -69.6 degrees Celsius. This extreme cold is not merely a statistic, but a condition that shapes the physical behavior of ice and air alike. Beneath its seemingly static surface, the ice is in motion. Greenland's ice sheet loses an average of around 250 billion tons of ice each year through melting and discharge. Even the slow-moving interior feeds this mass toward outlet glaciers along the coast. For this reason, the ice sheet interior is not a dead zone. It is a storage and regulatory system, preserving Earth's climate memory within ice cores spanning hundreds of thousands of years. Every meter of ice represents a slice of time. Leaving the ice sheet interior does not feel like passing through a place, but like exiting a state. The ice leaves no vivid image. It leaves a void in how space is understood. From that void, the journey continues, returning toward regions where humans seek contact, interaction, and more tangible experiences of Greenland. As the journey reaches the ice sheet interior, Greenland appears to approach absolute emptiness. Yet the ice does not end the story. It conceals an ancient geological foundation beneath. Greenland contains some of the oldest bedrock on Earth, with formations exceeding 3 billion years in age. This early geological structure enabled the concentration of significant mineral resources. Geological surveys confirm the presence of rare earth elements, iron, zinc, gold, and uranium. Greenland's rare earth potential is estimated to represent approximately 10% of the world's undeveloped rare earth resources, positioning the island as a future supply option. Potential does not equal accessibility. Approximately 80% of Greenland's surface is covered by ice, combined with harsh climate, limited infrastructure, and high operational costs that make large-scale extraction extremely challenging. Greenland's minerals therefore remain in a state of latency. They do not drive rapid growth or function as a steady resource flow, but represent long-term choices, options that may be activated or deliberately left untouched. The true value of Greenland's resources lies not in immediate extraction, but in forcing a reassessment of development, environment, and natural limits. Beneath the seemingly endless ice, Greenland does not store easy wealth. It preserves unresolved decisions. For decades, Greenland has approached its mineral resources with caution. Not due to lack of external demand, but from an understanding that once extraction begins, landscapes and rhythms cannot return to their original state. Internal debates around minerals extend beyond economics or engineering. They directly address what Greenland wants to become: a resource supplier, or a land that preserves rare ecological limits in the modern world. Greenland's minerals therefore function as a test not of extraction capability, but of restraint, choice, and the ability to refuse when necessary. In a world increasingly dependent on strategic materials, Greenland faces a clear paradox. The more attention drawn to what lies beneath the ice, the greater the value of leaving that ice undisturbed. After leaving the ice sheet interior, where humans nearly lose relevance, Greenland reveals a different layer of experience. Activities here are not about conquering the landscape, but about approaching it without disturbing its existing order. At the ILULISSAT ICEFJORD, witnessing massive icebergs is not a passive spectacle. Roughly 20 million tons of ice move through the fjord each day, making every moment temporary. What is observed is not a static scene, but an ongoing process. Kayaking among ice flows introduces near silence. The distance between humans and landscape narrows, forcing slow, deliberate movement. Quiet becomes part of the activity itself, not a byproduct. As darkness returns, hunting for the northern lights is never guaranteed. The phenomenon depends on solar activity, appearing only under precise conditions. Greenland lies beneath the auroral oval, where auroras can be visible on more than 100 nights per year. On snow-covered land, dog sledding is more than a winter activity. It is a legacy of Arctic mobility. Dog teams maintain steady travel across conditions where mechanical transport often fails. Glacier hiking offers direct contact with time. Beneath each step lies ice formed over thousands of years. Fractured and shaped by slow, persistent motion, every movement occurs on a surface that has never been fully still. Beyond natural scenery, Greenland holds early historical traces. Viking ruins in the south reflect attempts at permanent settlement. Preserved in an environment largely unchanged for over 1,000 years, these remains stand as evidence of ambition meeting limitation. In Inuit villages, experience comes not from observing customs, but from understanding rhythm, daily life, language, and reliance on the sea reveal a mode of existence that neither separates from nor seeks to dominate the environment. Cultural experiences within Inuit communities reinforce this understanding. There is no separation between activity and life. Movement, hunting, and daily routines are direct responses to environment, not recreational choices. In retrospect, Greenland's activities leave no record of how much was accomplished. They leave a subtle recalibration of worldview where humans no longer occupy the center but exist as dependent elements within a larger system. From that recalibration, the journey moves onward, not toward more experiences, but toward confronting the boundaries where life itself becomes fragile. When discussing biodiversity in Greenland, the key is not abundance, but distribution. This is not a dense ecosystem, but a thin network stretched across sharply contrasting conditions from nutrient-rich deep seas to ice plateaus that are nearly empty. The majority of Greenland's life exists in the ocean. Surrounding waters support more than 600 marine species, including fish, mammals, and plankton. Cold currents deliver nutrients, forming the base of food webs that begin with microscopic life. This productivity allows for the presence of large animals. Whales, seals, and seabirds congregate in specific zones where currents and ice create efficient feeding conditions. Their presence is seasonal, tightly linked to marine geography. On land, the picture changes entirely. Only around 56 vascular plant species are able to survive in Greenland, mostly concentrated in the south and ice-free coastal zones. Vegetation does not form forests, but exists in low, scattered patches with extremely slow growth. Terrestrial animals are equally limited. Only 17 land mammal species are recorded, many of which migrate seasonally or depend on coastal areas. Life does not spread evenly, but clusters around habitable nodes. This fragmentation creates a unique pattern. In Greenland, biodiversity is not measured by density, but by the ability to persist under discontinuous conditions. Ecosystems operate in short pulses, exploiting very specific windows each year. This makes Greenland's ecosystems especially sensitive. Small changes in temperature, ice, or currents can shift entire biological networks. There is no dense buffer to absorb disruption. Yet this fragility also allows a different form of resilience. When conditions return, life can reappear rapidly at familiar locations, as if it had never left. After moving through ice, sea, fragile life, and visible limits, Greenland leaves behind no single defining image. Instead, it leaves a composite sensation, an awareness shaped more by what has been removed than by what has been added. Greenland does not tell a story of abundance. It tells a story of selection. Everything that exists here must justify its presence through adaptation. There is no room for excess, no space for unconditional expansion. Looking back across the journey, it becomes clear that landscape is not a backdrop. It is the primary structure, shaping how life appears, moves, and withdraws. Humans, animals, and plants exist as temporary responses within a larger system. Time in Greenland operates differently. It is not experienced as progress, but as cycle. What happens here does not aim toward accumulation, but toward maintenance. Each season does not build upon the last, it replaces it. This reshapes the understanding of life. Existence is no longer synonymous with growth. In Greenland, survival is not a stepping stone towards something greater. It is the end goal itself. Prolonged silence, vast emptiness, and slow rhythm force a recalibration of expectation. There are no constant climaxes. Meaning emerges from staying long enough to realize that nothing needs to happen for a place to matter. Greenland also reflects the outside world. In an era where speed and expansion define success, this land stands as a quiet counterpoint. It does not resist or persuade, it simply continues according to its own logic. Through that lens, Greenland is not a destination to consume experiences. It is a space that compels a reassessment of how value is seen, measured, and defined. As this journey comes to an end, Greenland does not leave with us. It remains silent, vast, and unchanged, whether observed or not. What we carry back is not imagery of ice or sea, but a shift in perspective. A sense that the world does not need to be loud, fast, or endlessly expanding to hold meaning. Greenland does not teach us how to conquer nature. It reminds us that some places exist fully without needing control, explanation, or extraction. Within that silence, the question is not how far we traveled, but whether we learned how to slow down. Perhaps the most valuable thing we take from Greenland is not memory of a distant land, but the ability to carry its stillness back into everyday life. If this journey made you pause, reflect, or see the world differently, let us know. If this film resonated with you, please like the video. Share your thoughts about Greenland or about places that have made you slow down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more journeys like this. Thank you for staying until the very last moment.